You're good.
Good.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bill Reed. I'm a member of the board for the Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania. We're a group of caring individuals from the community that are working to develop and implement a system of care for the homeless veterans here in South Central Pennsylvania. So what's our mission? We stand to combat homelessness among veterans by providing support and services needed to promote a life filled with strength and purpose. And our vision is restoring trust, creating opportunity one veteran at a time. And as we go through this presentation, if you have any questions, I just ask you to, shoot those out. I'd be happy to answer them for you. So, what are we going to cover today? The community itself, what the therapeutic community is about, a phased approach that we're going to be using to help veterans be successful, and our ultimate goal is to end veteran homelessness. So, the location matters. The community is on a nice bluff overlooking the Susquehanna River. It's about as far south in the city of Harrisburg as you can get, right on the border between Harrisburg and Steelton. It's well above the floodplain. It's a nice secluded area, but yet it's close to all the different services that homeless veterans would need in the city of Harrisburg, and it's adjacent to the green belt, the parks. Anyone there can easily walk, enjoy what the city has to offer while getting access to the services they need. So there's a recent aerial view. I could try and use a pointer, hopefully it's gonna work. No, probably not, so I'm just gonna use my finger here. So this is the main community center. And these heart-shaped little rectangles are the foundations for the tiny homes that are going in our community. So, what is a therapeutic community? It's going to focus on providing a setting where the veterans are involved in decision-making and overall community functions. It ensures an environment where they're collectively responsible. Everybody at that community, the participants, the staff, other people that come in to help us, they're all going to be part of the solution. This isn't a cookie cutter kind of approach here. We're all developing those skills needed. It's strength-based. It respects and supports each veteran's abilities and how they contribute to their individual success and the success of the community. And it utilizes a feedback mechanism. So you might be asking yourself at this point, so why a therapeutic community? The reasoning being there are a number of other ways to approach eliminating homelessness. There's transitional housing, there's permanent supportive housing, there's rapid housing within the community. And for a large group of homeless veterans and homeless individuals in general out there, these approaches work. But what we found through the years is that there's this smaller percentage, 15%, maybe 20% of those that are homeless that receive these kinds of services, but they re-enter into homelessness. And it's because they lack the skills to be successful within the community. So the focus here is to train them how to be successful in this community first, and then give them the opportunity to then rejoin our community and be happy, successful, stable, respected members of our community. So, the tiny home is really the difference. There have been therapeutic communities since the end of World War II. But the tiny home is something new. And what it does is it provides a unique option and opportunity for the veterans by giving them a place where they can go, they can decompress, they have some personal control, and provides an opportunity for them to establish and apply those skills to maintain housing. And why is that important? The most chronically homeless veterans typically isolate themselves from others. They, for whatever reason, feel they need that space. Maybe they're suffering PTSD, maybe they've tried other systems of care and they feel like they were labeled. It could be shame, it could be any number of things. The tiny home gives them that ability within a therapeutic community model to also have that own personal space, with the goal that they work themselves from that need to always be alone and isolated in that personal space to entering into the community and joining it and being a functional part of it. So I'm pleased to say that this group is supporting us in a tiny home. Here's a little 3D view of it. I would say if you go to the Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania site, You can take a tour of the whole community, a nice aerial view, and take a look. But it's 210 square feet. They have their own bed, shower, bathroom, desk, an area to relax, microwave so they can heat up some quick food. But the goal isn't that they just go to this community and live in this tiny home. The goal is that they get out from that tiny home and start developing those skills they need to be successful. So, we have a big community center, and that community center provides a place where they're going to get their primary meals, they're going to interact with others, do their laundry, receive their basic needs. There's group activities and meeting spaces there. There's offices, there's places where they can receive therapy and other services. We have a barber, for example, that's going to come in and cut hair. We have medical providers that do street medicine with UPMC that are going to come there and actually meet with the veterans and make sure that if they're not using the VA, for example, for their primary healthcare provider, they can help them access other healthcare services that they may need. So the goal here is to provide this myriad of services in this community center and make it appealing for them. There's a place where they can go and meditate and be alone, and develop their emotional and spiritual needs. So all of these things are there for them so that it's appealing for them to move from that isolation back into the community. And that's really the goal here. And how are we going to do that? We're going to have great staff. Our non-clinical staff, our executive director, we're going to have 24-hour staff on site because it's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year operation. So it's going to be a safe place. It's going to be a place where they can go and relax and not be in fear. I do outreach down at one of the homeless encampments, for example. And one of the biggest concerns homeless individuals have is that they're going to leave whatever tent or lean-to or whatever it is they're living in, and when they come back, all of their personal belongings are gone. I don't know if you've ever driven and seen someone with a cart with everything they own. Well, the reason why they're pushing that cart is because if they leave it, they're afraid it won't be there when they get back. So we're going to have all those kinds of things managed and handled. We also are going to have a well-established clinical staff with a clinical director, a coordinator social worker. We're going to have a peer support specialist, which means someone who's been homeless themselves before and been trained on how to interact and provide that credibility. So that initial sense of trust is easier to achieve. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who's been homeless if they've been homeless also. There's less feelings of judgment or being looked at differently. And then, of course, our residential counselors who are there interacting with them on a daily basis. So the benefits here is we're going to keep those participants active. They're going to be case managed. They're going to have all these supported services. And that environment is going to really promote a desire within them to move to self-sufficiency and to develop those skills they're going to need to be successful. And we're looking at a holistic approach here. So it's not just about bringing them in, giving them a shower, clean clothes, a job, and then say, okay, you're ready to move into an apartment. For a number of people that works, but for these veterans specifically, we know that doesn't work. So we're really looking at that holistic health need that they're going to have and making sure they're ready and able to deal with whatever it is that led to their homelessness and then be successful when they leave the community and move into their permanent housing. So we'll dig down a little bit into a therapeutic community overview. Really quick, is there any questions that came in for that?
No, but do you encourage personal guests?
Personal guests?
Guests, yeah.
We can have guests, sure. And I think what I'll do is talk to that in just a moment when we talk about their individual service plan. That's a great question. I'll get right to that. So the therapeutic community itself, here's one of those Webster definitions. I can't even remember it myself, but what it basically is, it addresses their psychosocial needs. This is a real evidence-based practice. This is something that's been around for a while. Throughout the world, therapeutic communities have been used to provide support to individuals where other systems of care don't work. In America, oftentimes therapeutic communities are associated with recovery and addiction, but there's a long-standing history of them also helping deal with other things like mental health, inability to adjust. So the primary goal is to facilitate personal growth. So that's what we want. We want this individual to personally grow and develop. We want the residents to share their emotions and feel safe in the environment they're in. We want them to get involved in all the services they're offered, not be afraid of facing whatever it is that led to their homelessness in the first place. So it's a gradual, slow approach. So to answer one of the questions that typically comes up is, how long can they be in the community? There is no specific end date, unlike many other programs that are out there, especially programs that are funded by the government. There's a need for a certain amount of throughput to take place. That's not the case here. This is a special community we're dealing with the highest risk homeless veterans. So we're not going to put this artificial limit on how long they're there. Now, with that said, it's also expected that they're going to be continually working on their goals and moving forward. So we're also not inviting folks to come and just squat in a tiny home for the next 6 years. So there's that full interaction, and that's why being involved in therapy sessions and workshops and vocational are so important, and that's why the whole feedback process is so important. And it's really about this shared living environment. They interact with each other. So they have this tiny home, they have their space, but they're going to be interacting with others, and they're going to be interacting with other veterans. So what's really great about this is there's this commonality they bring from serving. If I meet someone who's served, for example, I'm a Navy veteran, and I meet someone who's served in the Navy at any time in their life, well, as far as I'm concerned, they're a brother and a sister and a shipmate. And that's just something the armed forces give to us. It's this sense of common purpose in being and who we are. And it frees us up to openly and honestly communicate with each other. With social learning and support activities and group discussions, there's shared responsibilities. So again, we're just trying to foster this environment where the veteran feels comfortable within a community, being part of a community and not living apart from the community. And the therapeutic atmosphere is just the fact that there's this environment where attitudes and relationships matter. There's rules, there's routines, there's expectations. The staff, the veterans, the peers hold each other accountable. So staff members that work in this community are open to and must receive feedback in the same way that residents do. This is quite different from other systems of care. I just had a procedure done, and I went in and I had a great nurse, and then I had a great tech, and I had a great doctor do this procedure. Now, at no point did any of those three ask me how this procedure was going to take place, where they were going to put the needle, how long they were going to do whatever it was they did. I was there, they did it. They did a great job, by the way, thank you. My shoulder feels so much better. But at no point did I feel, as the person receiving the services, that I had any control other than to behave myself, and my wife made me say I would, and sit there, not complain too much, and leave happy. And sometimes that doesn't work when we're talking about deep-seated emotional challenges and other kinds of challenges. Sometimes receiving feedback without feeling that you're being heard doesn't work. So this environment really allows that feedback, and that's that feeling that everybody's an equal stakeholder in success here. We're going to use, it's an evidence-based practice, as I said. Everybody that works there will be a qualified team member. When we do have volunteers, in addition to the background screenings, they'll be trained on what it is they're doing and how they interact. The whole goal here being to maintain that atmosphere's successful, that mix as it develops. We're going to bring our partners in, our partner agencies. We already have a large number of partner agencies that want to help us. I think about UPMC. I have someone from UPMC sitting here, but I would say this even if they weren't. When everything shut down during the COVID pandemic, for example, and they shut down all the shelters and such, UPMC had street nurses out on the streets during the whole event, taking people's temperatures, making sure they were going to the doctors. So they're a partner of ours. The VA, they're a partner of ours. Dauphin County Continuum of Care, the Capillary Coalition on Homeless Veterans, we're already members. So we have this group of providers that are going to work with us and help us. So it's a team approach. And each veteran contributes to their own success in the communities. This isn't one of those kinds of systems where, like myself, I'm going to go in, someone's going to fix me, and I'm going to leave. I'm one of the mechanics that has to fix myself. So if there's something that needs change, something about me that I need to address, and fix is probably the wrong word, it's just address it, recognize it, and find a way to cope with it. I can't do that if I'm not open to do that myself. And a lot of the therapy and a lot of the services we're providing are going to allow that individual the ability to do that. It's a phased approach. So that means when someone shows up, they're not going to go straight into full, okay, here you are, welcome to the therapeutic community, your therapy session's at 2 o'clock. No, it doesn't work that way. So when they come in, we're going to use a phased approach. We're going to identify and find the veterans. How are we going to find them? Well, we're going to participate in coordinated entry. So across the nation, there's a system of continuums of care. Just think about it this way. Every community, whether it's one county or many, has a system of care in America that has a plan to eliminate homelessness. We're highly involved with Dauphin County and the city of Harrisburg's continuum of care. Anybody who enters their homeless system, if they're a veteran, we're going to know about them. I work with that in my role at the YWCA every day, and it's an effective system. And helps us develop this by name list of homeless veterans. So if you look at our website, you'll see that how many veterans are homeless in Dauphin County we know. Well, the reason we know is we participate in this by name list. So we review every 2 weeks this list of every single veteran we've identified who's homeless in PA, and we update the group on what their status is and how can we bring resources to them to help them leave homelessness. We work with the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're excited to work with us to use their programs with our programs to make sure we have the right match. We collaborate with all our community partners, as I've said. We're going to conduct our own outreach. I've been conducting outreach in the city of Harrisburg and Dauphin County for 17 and a half years. We know where the homeless congregate. We know where they go to seek services. So we're out there in the woods, under the bridges, in the libraries, in the parking lots, in the areas where individuals that are homeless congregate, and we always ask them this question: have you ever served in the armed forces? And if they have, you're right. They go to the by name list, and then we work on it. And then we're going to greet those that show up. They may walk to our door, or a family member may call us and say, hey, I have a veteran living here, I'm very concerned about them. They've been couch surfing for 3 weeks or 3 months or a year, and I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. Well, talk to us. We're going to help you get them connected to our program or the appropriate program that's going to work for them. So it's a team effort. We're going to assess them to determine their eligibility and amenability. And why is that important? So we need to make sure that, first of all, they served in the armed forces, and that includes the reserves or National Guard. We want to open it up to as many veterans as we can. So unless they have a dishonorable or a bad conduct discharge from a general court martial, which by the way is the federal standard, we'll take them. We may take someone who has an other than honorable. Maybe they were discharged because they were in combat and they developed PTSD and it wasn't diagnosed while they were in the service. So maybe they self-medicated through drinking or drugs or something, and they were put out of the service because at the time it wasn't identified that they had these problems. Well, we still want to work with them, right? We still want to help them. They raised their right hand, they swore their oath. We want to make sure we can get them back to where they meant to be all along. So our goal is to restore that dignity and that sense of service to them. Doesn't matter what their gender identification is. And our assessment's focused on identifying their needs. In other words, making sure that this is the right solution for what they need to be successful. So how do they come in? We do all that, we determine they're a veteran, and then we're screening them, we give them a tiny home. So we're gonna start out with baby steps. So we know that they're used to being on their own, isolating, or having that control of space. So we're gonna give them a tiny home, we're gonna give them their basic needs. We're gonna show them and walk them around how a community center works. I think it's all like church. The first day you come in, you don't take an office, you may not run a committee. Hey, welcome to our church. We want you to feel welcome. We're gonna provide what you need spiritually. We're gonna help you feel like you're part of our family. And then a year or two later, then say, okay, we need you on the committee. We see you have this skill. We see you have this to contribute. We're going to bring you on board. Very similar concept. And it works. We're going to make sure they understand what a therapeutic community is, the roles and the responsibilities, because they're expected to contribute to the community's wellness, not just their own, and the benefits they're going to receive from this. We're going to talk about our policies and procedures, and we're going to make sure that they want to follow that process. Once they get through that orientation phase, the first piece, they're in the phase itself, and they're in assimilation. So that assimilation, they're in their tiny home. They're getting used to the community. They're learning when meals are served. They're learning how to get their laundry done. They're meeting their case managers. They have a Bill of Rights. So there's a Veterans Bill of Rights. So we let them know what their expectations should be. It's hard to ask somebody if you're doing a good job if they don't know what the expectations are of what we're supposed to be providing them. So that's right up front. They have a copy of that. There'll be a copy of the Bill of Rights in every one of the tiny homes. So they'll know right there what it is they should expect from the staff and the volunteers that are also serving them. Very important to empower them and give them that sense of, I have some control over where I'm going. Important. We're going to make sure they maintain their habitability standards in their tiny home. Maybe they're just not capable of living in this kind of environment. Maybe they need something that's permanent supportive housing and has a higher level of personal supportive care. Well, that would happen, in which case, because we're part of that continuum I spoke of earlier, we'll work with that continuum and get them into the program they do need. So the advantage is there is no wrong door. If they come here and they need something different, we're not just going to say, well, there's a street, here's a phone number, give someone a call. We're going to help them get to where they need to go. So our goal, again, is to end veteran homelessness. This is the therapeutic model, but we're going to connect them to whatever works best for them. We're going to demonstrate, they're going to demonstrate to us a concerted effort to try and adapt to the model. And if they struggle with that, we're going to work with them continually to try to help them. So, again, just to recap, the tiny home provides a safe space, it's progressive engagement. While they're there, they're going to develop something called an individual service plan. Every individual who has needs has their own service plan. And I just look at it like a medical record. When I go in to see my doctor for my annual physical, other than getting 37 types of blood work I have to get done, the older I get, the more blood work I get. So, but I'm gonna have my own plan. My wife has her own plan. Every veteran's gonna have their own plan. And it's gonna both identify where their barriers are, but more importantly, where their strengths are, and where it is they wanna be when they leave this community. Really important that we establish that. Now, the nice thing about this individual service plan is that it can change over time. They may have that aha moment, that epiphany. It happens. I've seen it happen many times where they go, oh my, we drilled down far enough. Here's really where this problem started. I want to do this. I want to turn this direction with my life. So that plan is going to be reviewed continually with their case managers, with their social worker, with their friends and family if they talk to them and visit with them, with all those things and people that are supporting them that matter in their life. And they're going to have control over what that plan says. But ultimately, every plan is going to say, I'm going to move to some form of permanent housing where I'm going to be stable and not re-enter homelessness. That is ultimately the goal of everybody's plan. And we're going to use those feedback mechanisms and those supported services to help them develop that plan as they move along. Self-determination and stability. So really important between day 30 and 60 that we can determine with the veteran if this approach, the therapeutic community, the tiny home approach is going to work in their minds. This is what they really need now. Maybe they are deep in the throes of addiction, for example, and they just cannot stop using. Well, then maybe what they need to do is go to recovery and rehab first, and then come back, for example. Might be a common reason why at the 30 to 60 day point, we just realized they're not quite ready for the therapeutic community. Well, then we would coordinate with them to get them into a recovery regimen, have them go through that, and then come back to the community. But at that 30 to 60 day point, it's very important we have this conversation. Is this working? Do you really feel like you're going to want to be part of this therapeutic community? To have roles and responsibilities, to be held accountable. And the reason why we need to do it at this point is there's a statute called the Hearth Act. It's a federal statute, it's federal law, actually law, law statute, whatever. If they are in the community more than 90 days, they lose their homeless status. So why is that important? It's important because if we kept them 91 days and they did not want to stay, they would have to become homeless again to go into one of the other federally funded homeless programs. And we do not want that to happen. So what we're going to do, our role is to determine if this isn't going to work, hey, we're going to get you into an alternate program. So what are they responsible for? That tiny home, they want to make sure it's clean. They're going to support meal preparations and the cleanliness of the community. They're going to have to interact with others, interact and be open to that feedback, and most importantly, engage in self-examination. So personal growth, it's what they need to do. It's holistic. That's self-care. Get those skills they need to be successful. And the real important thing here to remember in all this is to just kind of move through this phased approach pieces. That goal achievement is individual in nature and tied to each one of their service plans. And that service plan is a living document that will change over time. So there's a lot of words there. It's transformative. It just changes. So once they're in that initial assimilation phase, they're going to move through the self-determination phase and that stability phase. That's when they're going to spend the bulk of their time. That self-determination and stability is when they're going to address all those barriers they've been dealing with. They're going to use all those resources they have. And whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, they're going to use this phase, those resources, to grow and develop and become able to be a peer and to approach that graduation phase. Every one of the veterans is going to do this differently, but as they become part of that team, accept that feedback, feel comfortable being part of a community, it's going to go faster. They're going to feel more confident. They're going to have more ability. They're going to be in a role where not only are they taking feedback, but they're providing it to others. And then hopefully develop those leadership traits they need to be successful. And when they do, they're going to be considered a peer in good standing. So once they're to the point where they feel confident, they feel like they achieve those primary benchmarks of their goals, where, hey, I'm really thinking about I need to move, I'm going to move on here soon. I can see that light at the end of the tunnel. They're a peer in good standing. At this point, they're going to contribute in a different way. They're going to assume leadership roles. They're going to be mentors to others who aren't where they're at now. And they're also going to benefit from being peers. They're going to have more freedom. Maybe they can have guests more often. Maybe they can have more time outside of the community to do what they want to do and then come back to the community. Let's face it, they feel they've overcome and dealt with these challenges. We have to let them swim now, you know, and they may have some setbacks. They may have to go back and try again before they feel that they're comfortable and that they're able to be successful. But the goal here is that when they're a peer in good standing, they're ready to move. And then once they are that peer in good standing, we're going to develop their exit plan. And the primary goal of that exit plan is to make sure through linkages to systems of care that anything that has not been addressed they're connected to a service that can help them continue. For example, maybe their goal is to get an associate's degree. Well, we don't want to keep them there until they finish their college, but we'll make sure they're enrolled in college. We'll make sure they understand how they plan to pay for it, what they're going to do. They need their GI Bill. So we're going to develop these linkages. Maybe they have a long-term health concern. We'll make sure they're enrolled in a system of care that's going to do that. We're going to make sure they've identified what kind of permanent housing is going to work for them and where it's going to be at. And we're going to make sure that when they leave, their wellness goals have been identified. Then they're going to graduate. So once they graduate to permanent housing, they're still allowed to maintain contact. We're actually hoping to build an alumni of peers that are going to come back. Eventually, I would love to see this community staffed primarily of people who used to be there and live there. I think that would be a dream, an ultimate dream. because it's so much easier to have that conversation when you've lived those experiences yourself. But they'll be able to participate. Again, come back, help, do what's needed, encourage those who feel like this is an impossible challenge. So, hopefully I left a little time for questions. Any questions out there? Any questions here in the room?
This sounds like maybe this particular program's the only one in Pennsylvania right now. Is it something that might expand later, or are there other programs like this one in other places?
Well, it's a great question. There are other tiny vet villages. I don't believe they're building one in Erie. They're hemming and hawing in Philly trying to get it done. There's a couple. Pittsburgh's been kicking it around a little bit. But a therapeutic community that utilizes tiny homes, we will be the only one. And I think there's only one other tiny home therapeutic community in the country, and I think that's in Washington or Oregon State. There are other tiny home communities that take different approaches. There's no wrong approach. What we're trying to do is end veteran homelessness in central PA. And then we would love to see this model go other places. So end it here, show everyone that the tiny home and the therapeutic evidence-based model, when put together, is an ideal solution for homeless veterans, especially the most hard to help. And then if that works, we'll fine tune it, we'll work it, then hey, I would love to see one of these in every major community that has homeless veterans. Yes, sir.
I know there's some housing for veterans that was constructed within the last 10 years in uptown Harrisburg. Are there other programs that you work with that to graduate the people who are leaving, the veterans who are leaving the tiny home community?
That's a great question. I think you're speaking to the hub, and I actually worked with the hub when they were developing that process as part of the YWCA veterans team. That actually, half of the housing at the hub is identified with VA HUD-VASH Section 8 vouchers. The other are for homeless, low-income veterans. We do work with them, although there's enough demand that there's not a lot of turnover. We're going to work with the Capillary Coalition on Homelessness to connect to landlords who are open and amenable to helping homeless veterans move in. Maybe they had bad credit. Maybe 3 years ago they had an eviction, for example. We'll work with the Support and Service for Veterans Family Programs, SSVF, which is a VA program. I actually do one of those for the YWCA, and there's 2 others in our Harrisburg area that will help them move from our community to permanent housing. So there are now specifically earmarked for veterans, not so many, but it's been my experience that many landlords are more open to working with veterans with challenges than other homeless individuals in the general population. I would love to see someone come in, for example, and build more dedicated permanent housing for veterans. And of course, if they did, we would, want to partner and help with them in any way we could, as long as it was a good fit with the model that we're providing. Hope that answered.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It seems like there's a huge counseling service component to this plan. I mean, you're going to need to be intimately involved in their lives and their problems, and that seems like a massive ask for staff. And so I'm wondering whether you've got other supportive organizations that are going to come in and aid in that effort.
Well, we do. One of the advantages in my role at the YWCA is we've coordinated the homeless veterans stand down. This will be our 18th year. Rumor has it March 30th at the farm show. Not official yet, you're the first to hear it. But for example, at that stand down, we had over 24 just recovery and mental health providers alone that work with our group. We have the VA and the Healthcare for Homeless Veterans program and all of their programs. We work with the Veterans Court to help veterans avoid incarceration through a remediation court process. And so we have access to that. And then our mainstream providers, we're very blessed here in South Central PA in having a lot of really great resource providers, especially when it comes to things like therapy. For example, even in my role, in my job at the YW, we have EAP, so we have access if we're facing burnout or vicarious trauma is the term they use, where we can go and get our own therapy, our own help, talk to somebody. So definitely we'll work with our community partners to make sure that not just the veterans, but those who are working there have access to those services. And the other advantage is because there's a 24/7 clinical staff, and this is from my own experience, we spend time, a lot of time after a particularly tough visit with someone, a veteran, sitting down with a cup of coffee, just kind of getting, wow, how do you feel about that? That was a tough day. And so this is part of what we'll do, part of our leadership to make sure that we have those resources, both for the veterans and for those care providers. 15 is at current full capacity. Even if we were at 20 or 25, is a relatively low case management caseload based on what the state standard. The state standard is 50 to 70
Really?
at a time. Yes. Yes. So, and even in the VA, for example, there's over 300 HUD vouchers in our region. And I think they have 15 or 20 case managers to manage all those vouchers. So, yeah, thank you, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that it's a tough job. And this is a great segue. This is a way this group could help. One of the things we're going to need is volunteers to come in and do things that are fun, that are positive. Maybe a cookout, or come in one day and just, on a weekend and do something positive. We're talking about maybe a bunch of us joining up with people, maybe going to a Senators game, or just doing some kind of an activity, fishing. Those are ways where the community can help, not just the people there, the veterans there, but those to participate and do it. So there are ways to address that and help us all feel like we're part of the greater community. And of course, the incredibly generous support and contribution from all of you is a clear example, that's a lot of weight off our shoulders, right? That's one veteran at a time, hopefully multiple per year, who are gonna have a place to go. So, yes, and it's a team. It's a team effort. Thank you. Any other?
When the homes are built, what funding sources do you have for, month after month, keeping things up?
Well, that's a great question. We have identified a number of services we can go to. We're trying to not write direct service provision grants if we can help it. And the main reason is because this is kind of a groundbreaking process. We don't want to put time limits on how long someone can be there. I've written a lot of grants. I can write grants. But what we'd like to do is rely on funding, fundraising, and eventually maybe even mainstreaming this process. If we can show that this evidence-based process is doable, maybe even working into the medical system of care. That's what we'd like to see happen. If someone goes to, for example, recovery, many times there's ways for that can be billed. So we'd love to see us eventually get to the point where we're able to do that. So we're going to need that real boost up front just to make sure we can pull the model together and demonstrate how successful it is. And then, our goal is then over the long term to have that ability to use alternate funding streams to pay for it. I hope that's.
But to be clear, Bill,
Yeah.
we are still fundraising.
We are fundraising.
We will be fundraising for the foreseeable future.
To the end of time.
We're looking for, tax favored programs from
There
the
you go.
state, from corporations and individuals and local foundations. That is definitely going to be our life's blood for the first couple of years.
Yeah, and it's like any startup endeavor. I actually asked that question the other day, about how many years does it take a startup business to feel like, I think we're gonna make it. Well, about 3 to 5, right? Well, we're gonna make it, I'm telling you that right now, but we'll be doing a little bit of, for the next 2 to 3 years at least. But this is something that's needed. We've received enormous support. We obviously could use additional support And as a matter of fact, if you look on our website, Veterans Outreach of PA, I would say go to the website, look through, do the area. We have this, someone who brings in one of those drones and does updates. There's actually a little video where you can watch the community center you built. It's pretty amazing. And go in there and just look. For example, if you had we've done the math, I have 7 World War II veterans in my greater family that I'm, for example, personally going to do a brick for, or make sure the family does a brick for. So we're going to recognize our veterans and our families. It's just one simple way to help. But there's many other ways. So, like I said, and you can reach out to myself or to John, who's sitting here. Any of our board members, we're all on the website if you want to have a greater talk. You want to get together for coffee and talk about how to have a greater role, I'm always happy to do it. I'd be honored to talk to you more about what we do.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good question.
I have a minute.
Sure.
I'm Pete File.
Oh, hi,
I'm
Pete.
a member of the Mission and Peace Committee.
Oh, thank you,
And
sir.
we're very glad to hear that you started construction and all of the projects on its way up.
Thank you, Pete.
And we hope to be able to participate later. And on behalf of the congregation, I'd like to give you this check for one tiny home and that.
This is amazing.
Keep it going.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I can assure you, as soon as it's safe enough and you understand this, I will personally give you all a tour. John knows I'll do it. Give you a tour of the site and show you everything. I'm just, any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Glad we could help.
Good job.
Always a pleasure.
Be good.
Oh, excuse